The marketplace was loud and cruel. Voices shouted prices, chains rattled, and strange creatures cried inside iron cages. The smell of oil, blood, and smoke filled the air. It was not a place of life, but a place of despair. In the middle of this chaos walked a man. He was human, one of the few humans ever seen in this far corner of the galaxy. His face was hard, his eyes sharp, but inside his heart there was something restless. He had traveled from world to world, carrying no home, carrying no family. He had fought wars, survived battles, but inside he carried a quiet emptiness. He came here only to trade, only to pass. But then he saw it. In one of the cages, pushed into the shadows, was a small figure. At first he thought it was just another alien child, but then the child looked at him, and the man froze. The child's eyes glowed faintly. Like two stars trapped in darkness, the small hands were trembling, the face covered with dust and bruises. The other slaves looked broken, their spirits gone. But this child's gaze was different. It was afraid, yes, but it was also begging. Begging without words, as if whispering, "Please help me." The man felt something heavy inside his chest. He had walked past many slaves before. He had seen suffering on 100 worlds. But this moment was different. He could not look away. Slaver barked loudly and struck the bars of the cage. "Back, little beast," the alien growled. The child curled up, silent, shaking. The man's fists tightened. The slaver laughed. "Cheap creature, weak blood, worth almost nothing." The crowd laughed with him. But the man did not laugh. He stepped closer. His eyes, never leaving the child. The slaver noticed him and smirked. "Ah, human," he said. "Do you want to buy? Cheap, very cheap, not worth more than scrap." The man said nothing. He only kept watching the child. His mind was storming. He did not plan this. He did not want this. But his heart whispered, "This child must not stay here." He remembered his own past. He remembered battles, broken villages, orphaned faces. He remembered children crying in the ruins of war. And suddenly this child's eyes became all those voices from the past. He could not ignore it. Not this time. The slaver leaned close. "If you do not buy, walk away, human. Do not waste my time." The man finally spoke, his voice low. "How much?" The crowd hushed, curious. The slaver grinned with yellow teeth. "For you, let us say, 200 credits." The man's jaw tightened. He had the credits, yes, but he also knew buying was not enough. Because once a slaver sees a weakness, once they smell mercy, they never let go. If he bought the child, they would follow, they would hunt. He looked again at the cage, at the child's trembling hands. The decision was made. He reached for his belt, not for credits, but for his hidden weapon. His fingers brushed the metal grip. His heart pounded. He knew what this meant. This was not a trade. This was war. Suddenly, the crowd erupted in noise as a fight broke out nearby. Two drunken aliens shoved each other, and for a moment all eyes turned. The man used that moment. He smashed the cage lock with one swift strike. The child gasped, eyes wide with shock. "Quiet," the man whispered, pulling the child into his arms. The chains fell away. For the first time, the child was free, but freedom was never easy. Alarms screamed. The slaver turned back and roared in fury. "Thief! Stop him!" Guards rushed in, weapons ready. The marketplace shook with chaos, shouts, running feet, flashing lights. The man ran through the crowd, the child clinging tightly to his chest. Blaster shots rang out, scorching the air. He dodged, left, leaped, over crates, pushed past screaming merchants. Every step was heavy, but every step was certain. The child buried its face in his shoulder. The man whispered, "Hold on, I will not let them take you." His lungs burned. His legs raced. Behind him, the slavers howled with rage. This was no longer a simple escape. This was the beginning of something far greater. He reached the end of the street, the spaceport towers rising in the distance. His ship was waiting there, his only chance. But already he could hear the engines of pursuit. They would not let him go. Not easily. The man tightened his hold on the child. He looked up at the stars beyond the dark sky. and for the first time in many years, he felt his empty heart beating with a new fire. He did not know why destiny had placed this child in his path, but he knew one truth. He would fight the galaxy itself if he must. He would protect this child, no matter the cost. And as the alarms grew louder, as the guards closed in, the man whispered to himself, "This is only the beginning." The alarms screamed across the alien marketplace, echoing like 1,000 angry horns. The human ran with the child in his arms, pushing through the crowd as shouts rose behind him. The slavers had seen everything, their eyes burning with fury. Their boots pounded the metal ground. Their weapons fired bolts of red light. Each shot missed by inches, sizzling past the man's back. The child trembled, its small hands gripping his torn jacket. The human whispered, "Hold tight." His breath heavy but steady. His legs carried him forward faster, stronger, as though years of battle were guiding his every step. He had run from death before, but never like this. Now it was not only his life at risk, it was the fragile life of the small being pressed against his chest. He turned a corner, sprinting down a narrow alley filled with steam and broken crates. The crowd scattered, some screaming, others pointing. The slavers were close, their harsh voices ordering the guards to block the exits. The man's mind raced. He could not run forever. He needed a plan. He needed to reach his ship, but the spaceport was heavily guarded. The child's glowing eyes peeked from his shoulder. Fear burned in them, but also something else. A strange spark. A hidden power. The man noticed it when one of the guards leapt out from the shadows, aiming a blaster straight at him. In that instant, the child let out a soft cry and a pulse of invisible force exploded outward. The guard was thrown back into the wall, his weapon clattering to the ground. The man froze for a heartbeat, shock in his eyes. He had seen many powers in his time, but never from one so young. The child buried its face again, trembling as if ashamed. The man whispered quickly, "You saved us." His voice was firm, not fearful. He would not see the child as a monster. He saw only courage. He pushed forward, heart racing faster. The sounds of pursuit echoed from every side. Above them, search drones scanned the alleys with red lights. He darted under them, his body moving with precision from years of survival. He found a sewer hatch, yanked it open, and dropped down into the darkness. The stench was thick, but it was cover. Water splashed under his boots as he ran through the tunnel. The alarms above sounded distant now. The child clung to him, silent. His arms ached, but he would not let go. He whispered, "Almost there. We will make it." His words were not only for the child, but for himself. The tunnel ended near the spaceport's edge. He climbed out, carefully lifting the child. The wide field stretched before him, filled with ships of all kinds. Lights blinked across the landing pads. Engines roared as vessels took off and landed. His own ship was waiting, an old freighter patched with scars of past battles. It was small but fast, and it had saved his life before, but between him and the ship stood armed guards. The slavers had predicted his path. They were ready. Their leader shouted, "Give back the creature, human, and we will let you live." The man's jaw tightened. He knew it was a lie. Slavers never gave mercy. He held the child closer, his voice cold. "You will never touch this child again." The guards raised their weapons. Fire lit the air. The man ran, weaving through the storm of blaster bolts. His boots slammed the ground, his muscles burned. He fired back with his own blaster, sharp and precise. 2 guards fell. The others closed in, but then, once more, the child acted. A wave of unseen energy rippled from its small body. The bolts bent away, crashing into walls instead of flesh. The man stared in disbelief but did not stop. He used the moment, sprinting up the ramp of his freighter. He slammed the control, the hatch closing behind them as shots rang against the metal. He rushed to the cockpit, placing the child in the co-pilot's seat. "Hold on," he said, his hands flying across the controls. Engines roared to life. The ship trembled, then lifted into the air. Slaver ships rose immediately in pursuit, their sleek fighters circling like hungry wolves. They fired at his freighter, shaking it violently. He gritted his teeth. pushing the engines to their limit. The stars ahead beckoned, freedom so close yet so far. The child gripped the seat, eyes glowing brighter. As another blast shook the ship, the child cried out, and the control systems flickered with strange light. The man glanced at the screen, shocked. Somehow the child's power was flowing into the ship, shielding it, pushing it forward. With a thunderous roar, the freighter broke through the blockade. Stars stretched into streaks as hyperspace opened before them. The ship leapt forward, leaving the slavers screaming in the darkness behind. Silence fell inside the cockpit. The man breathed hard, sweat running down his face. He turned to the child, who sat shaking, eyes dim once again. He whispered, softer now. "You are safe." The child looked up at him, uncertain, as if waiting for anger. But the man only gave a small nod, his voice steady. "You are not a slave anymore. Not while I live." The child blinked, a tear slipping down its cheek. It leaned against him, fragile, tired, but trusting for the first time. The man closed his eyes for a moment, holding the weight of his choice. He had stolen not just a life from slavery, but a destiny. He did not know what the future would bring. He only knew one truth. He would protect this child with everything he had. And far behind them, in the shadows of space, the slaver warlord received the news. His eyes burned with rage. His voice thundered to his fleet. "Find them. Find the human and the child. Do not stop until they are mine." The chase had only begun. The stars stretched endlessly outside the freighter's windows, lines of light, slowly fading as the ship left hyperspace inside the cockpit. Silence hung heavy. The human sat in the pilot's chair, his eyes fixed on the controls. His breath was steady, but his mind was storming. Behind him, in the small co-pilot seat, the alien child sat curled up, tiny arms hugging its knees. The glow in its eyes had faded, leaving only a dim shimmer. For a long time neither spoke. The man did not know what words to use. He was a soldier, a wanderer, not a father. Yet every time he looked at the child, he felt that strange pull again, the same one that had forced him to break the chains. The child had saved his life twice already, first with a burst of power against the guard, then by shielding the ship in the escape. But it was still only a child, weak, tired, and afraid. He rose from his chair and moved quietly. He found a ration pack in the storage locker, unwrapped it, and placed it gently in front of the child. "Eat," he said, his voice calm. The child stared at the food suspiciously, as though expecting it to be another trick. Slowly, it reached out, trembling fingers breaking off small pieces. The man turned back to the controls, giving space. He did not force trust. He knew trust could not be ordered. It had to grow. Hours passed. The freighter drifted in the quiet of deep space. The alarms of the slaver world were far behind, but danger was not gone. The man knew they would be hunted. The child seemed to sense it too, every small sound making its body tighten. At last, the child whispered a single word, broken but clear. "Why?" The man turned, his brow furrowed. "Why, what?" The child's eyes glowed faintly, tears shimmering. "Why save me?" The man felt the question like a blade in his chest. He had no simple answer. He thought of his past, of villages burning, of children crying in the smoke of war. He thought of how many times he had turned away from suffering because survival demanded it. And he thought of the moment he saw those glowing eyes in the cage. "Because no one should live in chains," he said at last. His voice was low but firm. "Not you, not anyone." The child blinked, not fully understanding, but something inside seemed to soften. It took another bite of the food, then another. The man sat down across from it, not close, not far, a careful distance. The silence between them was no longer cold. It was fragile, like glass that could break with one wrong touch. Later, when the ship's lights dimmed into night mode, the man wrapped a blanket around the small figure. The child resisted for a moment, then slowly leaned into it. Its breathing steadied. Its glowing eyes closed halfway. For the first time, it rested without chains around its wrists, The man watched, feeling an unfamiliar weight in his chest. He told himself it was only duty, only survival. Yet deep inside he knew it was more. He felt the beginnings of something dangerous, something he had not allowed himself to feel in years: attachment. Sleep did not come for him easily. His mind replayed the slaver's face, the rage, the promise of pursuit. He knew the warlord would not stop. He had stolen more than just property. He had stolen power. And now the entire galaxy of slavers would hunt them. The child woke once in the night, crying softly, not words but sounds of fear. The man moved closer, kneeling beside the bunk. "You are safe," he whispered. His voice was steady, but his hand shook slightly as he rested it on the blanket. The child's small hand reached out, trembling, and gripped his fingers. That single touch struck him harder than any battle wound. The bond had begun, fragile but real. Days passed, and the journey continued. The child learned small words in English, repeating them shyly. The man taught slowly, pointing at things in the ship. Food, light, star. Each time the child repeated, he gave a nod of approval, and once, when the child whispered "Father" without even realizing it, the man froze. His heart thudded hard. He did not correct the word. He only turned away, hiding the storm. A feeling on his face. But danger returned quickly. One evening, the ship's warning lights flashed red. A signal pulsed across the scanners. Someone was tracking them. The man cursed under his breath. He shut off the main power, letting the freighter drift in darkness. Through the viewport he saw shadows moving, hunting ships scanning the void. The child pressed close to him, trembling again. He whispered, "Quiet." No sound. The enemy ships drifted past, their lights sweeping. For long minutes the man did not breathe. His hand rested on his weapon, ready to fight if they were found. The child clung to him, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. At last the hunters moved on. The freighter remained hidden. The danger passed, but not forever. When the lights came back, the child looked up at him, its voice quiet. "They want me." The man met the glowing eyes. "Yes," he admitted. "They will not stop, but I will not give you back." The child swallowed. "You will leave too." The man's face hardened. "No." His voice was steel. "I will not leave you." The words hung heavy, and for the first time the child believed them. It leaned against him fully now, the fear not gone but softer. A fragile trust was forming. The man felt it like fire in his chest. He knew this bond would change everything. He had begun this journey alone, but now he was no longer alone. He was a protector, perhaps even a father. And in the dark corners of the galaxy, the slaver warlord listened to new reports. His voice thundered, "The child lives, the human defies me, then we will break them both." His fleet prepared, engines glowing like a rising storm. The fragile bond had formed, but the storm ahead was growing stronger. The freighter drifted quietly through deep space, its hull scarred and its engines worn. Inside, the man and the child lived in a fragile peace. They shared food, words, and sometimes silence that felt safe instead of cold. But outside, the galaxy was no longer quiet. The slaver warlord had sent out hunters, and every star carried danger. It began with whispers on the comm channels, faint signals intercepted by the ship's old scanners. The man sat at the console, listening, his eyes narrowing. Voices in alien tongue spoke of a bounty, a human thief, a stolen prize. The reward was enough to tempt smugglers, pirates, and killers from every system. The child sat nearby, small hands gripping the edge of the chair. It did not understand every word, but it understood the fear in his eyes. The hunt had begun. The first attack came without warning. A sleek ship appeared from the void, dropping out of hyperspace right in their path. Its weapons lit the darkness. The freighter shuddered as bolts. A fire rained against its shields. The man's hands flew across the controls. His old ship groaned, metal shaking, but he pushed it hard, dodging, weaving. Each movement was sharp, desperate. He had flown through battles before, but never with a child's life tied to his own heartbeat. The child cried out, covering its ears as the hull screamed under pressure. The man reached back with one hand, steadying it even as he flew. "Hold on," he said, his voice steady, though his chest burned with fear. He angled the freighter into an asteroid field. The enemy ship followed, but the rocks became both shield and weapon. The freighter scraped past jagged stone, sparks flying. The hunter was less careful. Its sleek wing clipped an asteroid, spinning it into fire. In the silence after the explosion, the freighter drifted away unseen, but victory was hollow. The man knew more would come. Every victory only brought louder whispers, louder signals. Across the stars, he powered down the engines, letting the ship hide in the shadows of drifting rock. The child pressed close to him, whispering, "They will never stop." He nodded, his face set like stone. "Then we will never stop running." Yet running was not enough. The next hunters were smarter. They cornered him on a desert moon, ambushing. As he searched for fuel, the sky burned with the heat of twin suns as he carried supplies back to the ship. But shadows moved among the rocks, shots fired, dust exploding. He dropped to the ground, pulling the child down with him. His weapon flashed, precise, controlled. One hunter fell. Another crawled closer. The child's eyes glowed, power building. But the man shook his head quickly. "Not yet. Not here." Together they fought back, crawling, running, hiding among the rocks. Every moment the child stayed silent, trusting his command. At last, with smoke rising behind them, they reached the ship. Engines roared, and the desert became a blur of sand and flame. Another narrow escape, another reminder of how fragile their bond and their lives were. The child grew quieter after that day. It watched him more closely, studying every word, every movement. It seemed to understand that he was not only saving its life, but carrying the weight of both their fates. One night, as the stars passed in silence, the child whispered, "Why fight? You could give me back. They would not chase you then." The man froze. He turned slowly, his voice heavy but unshaken. "Listen to me. I will never give you back. Not to them, not to anyone. You are mine now." The child's eyes filled with tears, not of fear but of something new. Trust. It leaned against him, small and fragile, and for the first time it whispered the word clearly. "Father." His heart thundered. He had no answer. Only silence. Only a fierce promise burning in his chest. But the galaxy gave no rest. In the dark halls of his flagship, the slaver warlord prepared. His voice echoed over the comms, reaching every hunter. "The child is not just a prize, it carries the blood of an ancient race, power beyond measure. Whoever controls it controls the stars. Bring them to me, dead or alive." His fleet spread like fire across the systems. The man felt the danger closing in. He changed routes constantly, traveling through dead zones, abandoned stations, forgotten trade lanes. Still hunters came. Still shadows followed. Every battle left the freighter weaker, scarred, patched with desperate repairs. But every battle also left the bond stronger. The child no longer saw him as only a rescuer. It saw him as home. One night, as they hid near the edge of a dying star, the child sat beside him at the console. It placed its hand over his, glowing faintly. The ship's controls shimmered as power flowed through them. Engines strengthened, shields steadied. For the first time, the man realized they were not only running together, they were fighting together, and far away in the silence of his throne chamber, the warlord clenched his fists. "If the human will not surrender," he growled, "then I will crush them both, and the galaxy will see who truly holds power." Tato, hunt was no longer just about capture. It was becoming a war. The freighter drifted in the silent dark between stars, patched together with quick repairs after countless battles. The man sat at the console, his eyes heavy, his body worn, but his spirit unbroken. Beside him the child sat quietly, its glowing eyes fixed on the endless night outside. They had been hunted across worlds, chased through deserts, asteroid fields, and void. Yet somehow, they still survived. But survival was not enough anymore. The man knew the slavers would not stop. He knew there had to be a reason. He had stolen slaves before, helped strangers before, But never had he seen a galaxy-wide hunt for one small child. That night, as the engines hummed low, he turned to the child, his voice calm but firm. "You must tell me. Who are you? Why do they chase you?" The child's hands trembled. It lowered its head, silence stretching. At last, in a voice fragile but steady, it whispered, "They want me because of what I am." The man leaned forward, his eyes sharp. "And what are you?" The child's eyes glowed brighter, tears shimmering as it spoke. "I am the last of my kind." The words struck him like a blade. The child's voice grew stronger. "Long ago, before I was born, my people were hunted. We were different. Our blood carried light. Our minds touched stars. We could heal. We could bend energy. We were not many, but we were powerful." It paused, trembling. "The slavers feared us, so they destroyed us. Burned. Our homes took the children. We were made into slaves, toys, weapons," its small voice cracked. "And now, I am the only one left." The man's chest tightened. He had fought in wars. He had seen villages wiped from maps. But this was worse. This was not just tragedy. It was extinction. The child looked at him, eyes shining with pain. "They want me because they believe I can bring back what was lost. They believe I can be controlled, used as a key. They want me as a weapon." The man's jaw clenched. His voice was steel. "You are not a weapon. You are not a prize. You are a child." The child shook its head, whispering, "If you keep me, they will never stop. They will kill you." The man leaned closer, his eyes fierce. "Let them come. I will fight every one of them. You are mine now. Do you understand? No one takes you again?" Tears fell down the child's cheeks, but for the first time they were not tears of fear. They were tears of something deeper. The fragile bond between them became stronger, like iron forged in fire, but fate gave no time for rest. The freighter's sensors lit up with warning. A fleet was near. The man cursed under his breath. He pulled the child close. "We must move." The ship roared as he pushed it into motion. But enemy signals grew larger, stronger. The slaver warlord ships had found them. The chase through the void was like no other. Fighters swarmed around the freighter, bolts of fire striking its shields. The man dodged and rolled, but the old ship groaned under the weight. Sparks burst from the panels. Alarms screamed. The child's hands gripped the console, glowing brighter. Energy flowed from its small body into the ship, stabilizing shields, boosting engines. The freighter surged forward like a living thing. The man's eyes widened as the controls responded with power he had never felt. He looked at the child. "You are doing this." The child nodded weakly, sweat on its brow. "I can help, but it hurts." He shook his head. "No, don't push too far. You are more important than the ship." But the child did not stop. It whispered, "If we do not escape, we both die." Together they fought through the storm. The freighter darted between enemy ships, turning with impossible speed. Bolts of fire bent away, crashing into each other. The warlord's fleet roared in anger. For the first time, they were not only running, they were striking back. At last, with one final burst of power, the freighter broke through, leaping into hyperspace. The stars stretched, the enemy vanished. Silence returned. The child collapsed in the seat, breathing hard, its glow fading. The man caught it quickly, holding it against his chest. "You did enough. Rest now." His voice was softer, almost a whisper. Later, in the quiet of the ship, he laid the child on the bunk, covering it with a blanket. He sat beside it, watching the small chest rise and fall. His mind was storming. He now knew the truth. This was not just a rescue. This was not just a child. This was the last of an ancient people, the key to power, the hope of survival, and the target of an endless hunt. He could have walked away. He could have abandoned the child and saved himself, but instead he felt the fire in his chest. The same fire that had led him into the marketplace, stronger than fear, stronger than reason. He was no longer only a wanderer, no longer only a fighter. He was a father, and he would carry this child through every storm. Far away, aboard his flagship, the slaver warlord sat in his throne of steel. His eyes burned as reports reached him. His hunters had failed again. His voice thundered. The human knows the truth now. He knows the power of the child. If we delay, others will too. Arm the fleet, call every hunter. We will bring fire to the stars if we must. That child will be mine. The hunt was no longer about one child. It had become a war for the future of the galaxy. The freighter limped through space like a wounded bird. Its hull carried scars of battle. Its engines groaned with every jump. Inside, the man worked tirelessly, repairing panels, sealing cracks, keeping the ship alive. Beside him, the child recovered slowly, its strength returning, its eyes glowing faintly once more. They had survived the warlord's fleet, but survival alone was not enough. The man knew they could not run forever. One night, as the ship drifted through the shadows of a quiet system, the man spoke. "We need a place to stop, a place where they cannot find us." The child looked up, voice soft. "A home." The word felt strange on the man's tongue. He had not spoken it in years. Yet when he looked at the child's hopeful eyes, he knew it was time. They followed a trail of old coordinates, whispers of forgotten colonies where outcasts and exiles built their lives far from war and slavery. At last, after days of searching, the freighter descended through the clouds of a hidden world. It was a place of mountains and rivers, forests, stretching wide, villages of mixed beings, humans, aliens, refugees, stood together in peace. No chains, no slavers, only survival built through unity. The man stepped off the ship with the child at his side, wary, his hand never far from his weapon. But the villagers did not raise arms. They only watched with cautious eyes. A tall woman with silver skin approached, her voice calm. "You bring trouble with you, stranger. I can see it in your eyes." The man nodded. "Trouble follows us. Yes, but all we want is a place to rest, a chance to live." The woman studied the child. Her gaze softened as the child hid behind the man's arm. She nodded slowly. "You may stay if you are willing to work, if you are willing to protect as we do." The man gave a short nod. "I will." Days turned into weeks, and for the first time since the marketplace, the child knew safety. It laughed while chasing small creatures near the river. It learned words from other children. Its glow, once hidden in fear, began to shine with joy. The man watched quietly, his chest tight with unfamiliar warmth. He had seen the child fight for survival, cry in chains, tremble in fear. But now he saw something new: innocence. The villagers welcomed them slowly. At first they kept distance, for hunters always brought danger, but soon they saw the truth. The man worked hard, repairing machines, guarding walls, teaching children to defend themselves. He never asked for reward, only for a place where the child could sleep without fear. The child became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest times, light could survive. One evening, sitting by the fire with other families, the child leaned against him, whispering, "This is home now." The man felt the words burn into his heart. For the first time, he allowed himself to believe. "Yes," he said softly, "this is home." But shadows were never far. Rumors spread through the colony of slavers moving in nearby systems. The warlord's fleet was searching, burning villages, capturing stragglers. The man knew it was only a matter of time before they came. He trained every day, teaching others to fight. The villagers, once farmers and builders, learned to carry weapons. The child watched, sometimes joining, its small powers used to lift stones, to mend broken tools. The man warned it gently, "Do not show too much, not yet." The child nodded, but its eyes glowed with determination. As weeks turned into months, the bond between them deepened. The child no longer asked if he would leave. It no longer feared abandonment. It called him father. Without hesitation, the man, once hardened and empty, began to smile again. He laughed at the child's clumsy steps. He told stories of old battles. He found himself building not just repairs for a ship, but dreams. For a future, the colony became their family. Neighbors brought food, children played together. The man was no longer a wanderer, he was part of something larger. Yet deep inside, he never forgot the danger. Every night he stood watch at the edge of the village, eyes on the stars, waiting for the enemy he knew would come. And one night, as the wind whispered through the trees, he saw it. The sky burned with falling lights, dark shapes descending. Engines roared like thunder. The warlord had found them. The alarm bells of the village rang out. Families rushed to shelters. Fighters took up their weapons. The man pulled the child close, his voice calm though his heart raced. "Stay behind me. No matter what happens, I will keep you safe." The child shook its head fiercely. "No, Father, I will fight too." Its eyes glowed brighter than ever before, power humming in the air around it. The man stared for a moment, torn between fear and pride. He wanted to protect the child from the world, but he also knew this moment had been coming since the day he broke the chains. Together they walked toward the walls of the village, where friends and allies stood ready. Above them, the warlord's fleet filled the night, engines blazing, weapons charged. His voice thundered across the comms. "The child is mine, the human will kneel or the world will burn." The man lifted his weapon. The child's glow brightened, and the villagers raised their voices in defiance. For the first time, they were not only running, not only hiding, they were standing. United as a family, the storm had arrived, and the final battle was about to begin. The night sky blazed with fire as the warlord's fleet descended. Ships like dark blades cut through the clouds, their engines roaring, their weapons glowing red. Below, the village shook with fear. Families ran to shelters. Fighters rushed to the walls. The man stood in the center, his weapon ready, the child at his side, its eyes glowing with fierce light. The villagers looked to him for strength. He had once been a stranger, an outcast, but now he was their shield. He raised his voice steady and firm. "They come for one child, but tonight we fight as one family. They will not take what is ours." A cheer rose, shaky but strong. Hope burned in their hearts. The first attack came like thunder. Enemy ships unleashed a storm of fire. The ground shook. Explosions tore through the forest's edge. The man barked orders, leading the fighters with skill born of years of war. Blasters lit the night. Smoke rose. The villagers fought with everything they had, their fear turning into fury. The child stood close, watching, trembling, wanting to help. The man turned once, his voice sharp. "Stay behind the line." But when slavers broke through the defenses, rushing toward the village center, the child stepped forward. Its eyes flared like twin suns. A wave of energy burst outward, throwing enemies back. Weapons shattered, chains melted. The villagers gasped. Some fell to their knees, whispering of miracles. The man's heart pounded, fear and pride clashing inside him. He wanted to shield the child from this burden, but he could not deny the truth. The child was no longer only a victim, it was a force, and that force had chosen to fight. The battle raged. Hours felt like minutes. The sky was alive with fire. The ground littered with sparks, screams, and smoke. The man fought at the front, his weapon blazing. He cut down slavers one by one, protecting the villagers, protecting the child. His body burned with exhaustion, but his will never broke. Then the ground shook harder than before. A massive ship descended, larger than the others, its shadow swallowed the village. The warlord himself had come. His voice boomed across the battlefield. "Human, you cannot hide. The child is mine. Give it to me and I may let you live." The man lifted his weapon, his voice steady though his chest burned with rage. "You will never have this child, not while I breathe." The warlord's laughter shook the air. His soldiers poured out like a tide, stronger, fiercer. The villagers began to falter, their lines breaking, fear crept back into their hearts. The child stepped forward, standing beside the man. Its small hand reached for his, glowing with light. The man looked down, seeing not weakness but courage. He nodded once, silent. Together they faced the storm. The warlord strode from his ship, towering, armored, his eyes burning with greed and hate. He carried a blade that shimmered with deadly energy. The villagers fell silent, trembling. The man stepped forward to meet him, his weapon ready, his voice low. "If you want the child, you must kill me first." The duel began. Steel and fire clashed. The warlord struck with crushing strength. The man dodged, blocked, countered. His muscles screamed, his body weakened. But his spirit blazed. Every strike was fueled not by survival but by love, by the promise he had made. Behind him, the child's glow brightened, filling the air with light. At last, the warlord knocked the man to his knees. His blade rose for the final strike. The villagers cried out, but before the blade could fall, the child screamed. A wave of pure energy exploded from its body. The battlefield froze. Slavers were thrown, back like leaves in a storm. Ships cracked in the sky. The warlord staggered, his armor shattered. The man struggled to his feet. Seizing his chance, with one final roar he struck. His weapon pierced through. The warlord fell, his body crashing into the dirt, his eyes wide with disbelief. His voice broke as he whispered, "It should have been mine." Then silence. The battlefield grew still. The slaver fleet broke apart, ships fleeing into the night. The villagers stood in shock, staring at the glowing child. Light faded slowly, leaving only a small, trembling figure. The child's knees buckled, but the man caught it in his arms, holding it close. "You are safe," he whispered, his voice breaking. "It's over, you are safe." Tears streamed down the child's face. "I was afraid you would leave." The man knelt, pulling the child against his chest, his voice firm, steady, filled with every promise he had ever made. "I will never leave you. You are my family. You always will be." The child clung to him, whispering the word that had changed everything. "Father." The villagers gathered, their voices rising, not in fear but in celebration. They had stood together. They had won. The man looked around at them, at the homes still standing, at the families holding each other. He felt something he had not felt in years. A future. That night, as the fires of battle dimmed, he sat with the child on the hill above the village. The stars stretched across the sky, brighter than ever before. The child leaned against him, eyes half closed, whispering, "We are home now." The man placed his arm around the small shoulders, his voice soft. "Yes, we are home." Far above, the galaxy still turned, filled with dangers, wars, and shadows. But here, in this place, under these stars, a human and a child had forged a family, and that bond was stronger than any chain, stronger than any enemy, stronger than fear itself. The final stand was over, but their story had only begun.